All right, so it's Matt Wood again, talking about storage, archive, and backup and cloud. Um, Storage, one of my favorite topics. So I spent most of my time at NAB in the South Hall looking at it. So we'll cover off a few different vendors today and also what to do when you fill up your storage. So first up, we're going to talk about SmallTree, and they're possibly one of my favorite vendors that we deal with. I really love these guys. And SmallTree specialize in high-speed shared storage and networking for the PC, Mac, and Linux users. And they really know their networking. So for example, Linux and Unix machines can connect over NFS. Windows machines can use Samba or the CIFS protocol, which works great on the Titanium. Obviously for Mac, you use AFP, Apple File Sharing Protocol. So what's new from SmallTree? They released the Titanium Z, that's how they pronounce it over there, Z platform at NAB. So it's a free BSD based, so it's basically running OS X's big brother inside as the OS. It supports all platforms, and what they use is the ZFS file system inside, which lets us bond a bunch of drives together, and you can now grow the storage on the fly, which I'm really excited about. So you can keep adding and adding without having to rebuild the array. So gone are the days where your reseller would tell you, oh, we've got to copy everything off and rebuild the array and then copy everything back on again. So you just add some more drives and it magically grabs more space. The T5 has 5 drives inside, 20 terabyte raw when fully loaded. It's got 4 built-in gigabit ports and 2 built-in 10 gigabit ports. So you can plug right into this while you're out in the field and do all your editing on the fly. And the pricing is pretty amazing. 7720X with 2 terabyte drives or 9890X with 4 terabyte drives full. It's a very inexpensive box. It's going to suit smaller productions who want to do a bit of editing together. So with Gigabit, you can plug right into it with a normal laptop, or if you need that extra speed, you can plug into one of the SmallTree Thunderbolt chassis and go 10 gigabit Ethernet. So you can do 4K ProRes, for example, at 150 megabyte a second. Digistore has a couple of these demo units if you want to try one out. So give us a call and we can line something up for you. Now the T5 also has some bigger brothers. This is the Titanium Z T16. It's 16 drives. They're SATA 7200 RPM Hitachi Ultrastars. It's got a super micro motherboard with PCIe 3 throughout, 2 10 gig base T ports built in, so you get 10 gigabit RAID in the box. And again, this is running free BSD as well. It can handle 56 streams simultaneously of ProRes. That's an amazing number of streams to have going off just 16 drives. And even better, you can stack another box on top of it, plug it in, and add the storage, and on the fly, it restripes dynamically. You don't have to rebuild your array. So the added bonus is you keep adding drives, and it just goes faster. You can put 20 10 gig ports in this guy, so we can have a total of 22 guys all feeding over 10 gig from the one box. And pricing for 64 terabyte loaded out with 4 terabyte drives is under 30K. That's less than $500 a terabyte, which is pretty cool compared to some of the competing products. SmallTree is one of the lowest price points in the industry, but also have some amazing support options. The support model is so simple as well. What makes it work is remote screen sharing. So Chris Duffy and Steve Modica at SmallTree will log into the machine from the US and just magically start fixing stuff. So if you're interested in the T16 but you're not quite sure, let us know. What we can do is loan you the T5 as a proof of concept. You can hook up 4 editors and get an idea of what it could be on a larger scale using the T16. This box is the Titanium Z8. It's 8 drives, so it's the little brother. It's got 1 RAID controller. It's just as expandable. You can add more drives to it. But the one they were showing at NAB was special. It was full of SSDs. So it's all solid state drives, and they were playing 1 gigabyte a second of real-time video. That's 33 megabyte per frame, 30 frames per second. The video was playing to a Retina MacBook Pro over two 10 gig ports, each pushing over 500 gig a second. I saw it with my own eyes on the stand. Steve Modica showed it. So 8K anyone, they're ready now. So a lot of people ask us about what is going on with storage these days. What's trending, what's coming along they should be watching for. So probably the hottest thing at NAB was SSDs. Everybody is interested in solid state devices. They can write really fast. They're much faster than spinning disk. They're more robust. They can handle vibration. So people want to know if SSDs are ready. So Smalltree and the other vendors, including Dynamic Drive Pool, who I'm going to touch upon later, and DVS were all showing them pushing up to a gigabyte a second of real-time video. You got companies like SanDisk who have released SSDs, almost 2 terabyte big. So you can fit them in a RAID and actually come up with 16 or maybe 32 terabyte of SSD storage. Cost range will be anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 per terabyte, but they're definitely ready for prime time. So before I finish up on Smalltree, you need to know their products work with any editing system. It will work with Final Cut Pro, Final Cut X, Adobe Premiere, and After Effects, and the whole family. And new this year, Smalltree is supporting Avid project sharing and bin locking. It's built right into the box. There's a free 30-day license, so you can try before you buy. And you can enable the software license, and boom, you've got Avid project sharing using Mint by Flavosys, which Sean's going to talk about a little bit later. All right, next up, Dynamic Drive Pool, and this is my pick as the one to watch. It's made by Artist Technologies, and DDP is shared storage for Mac, PC, and Linux, where you can connect an unlimited number of computers with no licensing costs. Now they work kind of differently. The DDP drives appear on the desktop as local drives, and is based on iSCSI and AVFS technology over Ethernet. All systems come with a built-in metadata controller, redundant PSUs, and flexible RAID configurations. There's something for everyone with these guys, whether it be a couple of users to thousands requiring guaranteed bandwidth. So how do they do it? Here you can see and compare overheads on a typical NAS system and DDP. So NAS is fundamentally slower than iSCSI due to the chatty nature of the protocol. iSCSI operates over the same Ethernet infrastructure and is as fast and efficient data transfer protocol. So the combination of iSCSI for faster transfers and NAS for file system protocol awareness is used in the AVFS protocol to make the system run faster, and it's more efficient. The number of protocol handshakes between client and server is approximately 7 times less using AVFS. Now I'm hoping you can see this slide okay because it's one of my favorite features. DDP has a built-in mechanism for project sharing. Whether it's Final Cut Pro, Media Composer, or Premiere Pro, you're covered. So if you check out the slide, the green lock on Media Composer means these files are available. The red lock means that the bin is opened by a different client machine, but the same bin or sequence can be imported. So what does that sound like? It sounds just like Avid ISIS. Something else I love is you can directly connect your LTO5 or 6 device for backup and archiving using ArchiWare Prestore, which I'll talk about a bit later. So some of the things I love about DDP: awesome performance, extremely scalable, file and project level sharing and Avid bin locking, workflow manager giving you folder access rights, synchronization and backup tools. It's really competitively priced against EditShare, Facilis, and ISIS. It sits above Smalltree, but you do get more features, and there's no licensing cost per seat. All right, next up, let's see, and let's talk about what's new. Everyone's got to be familiar with the range, so let's talk about their new Thunderbolt devices. I'm pretty sure these guys had more Thunderbolt devices than anyone else at NAB, and it's not just for Mac. On the stand, they had the latest PC laptop hooked up to a rugged Thunderbolt and their little big disk Thunderbolt series. So it was a nice little setup for post-production or special effects on the PC. So we got to see a little post-production setup with the 5 big Thunderbolt, which is actually capable of 800 megabyte a second. That's the speed you used to have with a fiber chassis a couple of years ago. So it's pretty impressive stuff. The little big disk Thunderbolt is capable of 600 megabyte a second. So it's really portable and super high speed. And the rugged Thunderbolt USB 3 is the product you can use on set to offload all your CF cards or the SD cards that you have loaded with your daily rushes. So basically, a post-production artist would offload the 250 gig on the rugged in 10 minutes compared to 2 hours a few years ago. And what's on the way? Well, Intel announced the 20 gigabit per second Thunderbolt at NAB. So it'll be really interesting to see what's in store from LaCie and other vendors. Moving on to ATTO. Now these guys are celebrating their 25th year of being in the media and entertainment market, and they have such a strong history of being at the forefront. So when ATTO started in 1988, they developed the first solid-state storage technology in the world. As a result of doing that, they gained a lot of expertise in streaming data and managing latency, which are key attributes for great storage and network connectivity in our market. One of the problems they had, though, was there was no pipes big enough to fill the device they created. So that led ATTO to getting in the business of manufacturing host bus adapters, RAID controllers, bridging products, and network interface cards. ATTO really is one of the companies that has helped revolutionize workflows in media and entertainment. And ATTO were absolutely everywhere at NAB. They had products on over 60 stands, with partners demonstrating solutions built around their technology, ranging from Avid and Grass Valley to some of the newer companies like Red Digital, EMC, and NetApp. So what is new at NAB for ATTO? At the show, they had their new 12 gigabit SAS RAID controllers, which are also multi-channel, so they do the same thing as the fiber channel devices do. They had the 16 gig fiber channel host bus adapters, which come in single, dual, and quad port. They had a 16 gigabyte fiber switch and the industry's only 16 gigabit RAID controller for interfacing with workgroups that need to have multiple streams of uncompressed high def and 4K. There's also the desk link devices that are used out in the field for live events or on location shooting. You can interface a Thunderbolt enabled camera, a Thunderbolt enabled laptop, which will then connect into either a high performance fiber channel SAN or a SAS storage device. There is a SAS RAID controller, so you can have a JBOD disk chassis, and it would enable you to RAID protect the chassis as well. So Archive, and before I get stuck into Archive, I want to talk a little bit about fragmentation. So fragmentation is when your data or free space on your shared storage gets all chopped up and there's only little chunks left, and it makes your storage go really, really slow. A lot of people get very unhappy with that, and it's very difficult to fix. So how can you avoid fragmentation? Well, the easiest way is don't let your storage fill up. When your storage gets about 80% full, it's time to start thinking about some new storage, which Digistor will gladly help you with, or archiving older projects so you get more free space. The problem is this, and this is true for just about any storage, when it gets past about 80% full, all of a sudden there's not a lot of room for the storage anymore to add on to the end of the file system. So now the operating system, your machine that you're using, has to find little holes in the file system to write little chunks, and it has to start breaking your files up when it writes them out. So that's a really bad thing, and that's what leads to fragmentation. So if you want to avoid that, keep your file systems from getting 80% full and have an archiving plan in place. So that brings me to Storage DNA. I really like these guys. They're also the ones to watch, and it's an LTO and LTFS archiving solution, largely targeting the media space. So with more and more file-based workflows, the recurring problem is, where do I put all these files? So if you're someone who has done their research, you probably come to the conclusion that the best solution in terms of cost, reliability, and performance is going to be LTO tape. If you're anything like the majority of people out there and don't want to delete content for fear that you might need it again, and you simply can't afford to keep it on expensive storage, I think that is where LTO really resonates so well now with media. If you're an editor, you want an easy way to see content you can connect with and relate to. So the Storage DNA guys take the content as it's being archived and hide the complexities of what the file system is showing you, and instead use an interface to show you clips and previews and metadata. You see the same clip name as you would in Media Composer, so it's very comforting to an editor to see a clip name that they put inside of Avid rather than 9MX files in a file system. So Storage DNA have done really well in bridging the gap between the underlying technology and what the editor and the creative user is used to seeing in their interfaces. Now, did you know that Storage DNA can integrate with Avid Interplay? They came up with a rather elegant approach to integrate with it. Rather than going the traditional route of requiring a second archive database, requiring a transfer manager, they have chosen to integrate using web services. Web service is interesting in that it comes built in. It's free. You don't really need any other components from Avid other than your Interplay environment. The way it integrates is that you can ask DNA Evolution to monitor any Interplay folder for archiving. Once it's set up, it automatically monitors the folder, monitors any media elements, any clips, any sequences, any projects, any bins that come, and automatically collects the information behind these bins and sequences in terms of media clips and archives it to LTO tape. Now, this gives you a tremendous amount of flexibility. For example, you can set up a folder and you can tell all your editors this is the drop folder for any media elements they want to archive, and you can simply drag these elements inside the drop folder in Interplay Access or Media Composer, and it automatically archives those elements for you. Or you can have an existing ongoing project and you can set it up to automatically monitor that project. Anytime there are new elements, it archives it for you. You could have an ingest folder, or you could have a send to playback folder, all of which are constantly being monitored for archiving. In addition, you can write metadata back into the Interplay database, so it's viewable from Interplay Access or from Media Composer, and the process of restore is pretty simple. You can take any folder and mark it for restore, and you can have a drop folder so that elements that are offline can be dragged into the drop folder and are automatically restored for you. So what sets the Storage DNA guys apart? Well, most people look at LTO tape as an archive. They believe they are going to push their content to it, and it's going to be there for safekeeping, and they're never going to have to access it again. The folks at Storage DNA believe that LTO tape is cost effective, it's reliable, but there's a lot more you can do with it. They have come up with ways you can conform from LTO tape. You can directly access content from an LTO tape. So LTO tape is becoming more like a nearline, and that's what sets these guys apart from the others that simply act as a conduit to and from tape. More and more people are starting to take notice of Storage DNA. They do great turnkey hardware and software solutions from anyone from a freelance editor to a large production house. If you want to know more, give us a call. So ArchiWare P5. A lot of you will be familiar with ArchiWare Prestore. Digistor has deployed a number of sites. So what's new? You might have noticed they have changed the name a little bit. They've dropped the Prestore part, and the product is now known as ArchiWare P5. It's now a lot easier to start off with the trial version. If you want to check it out, you can set it up with the assistant in 3 easy steps and be ready to archive in just a couple of minutes. What's really cool is there's now cloud support, added to the synchronize module, so you can sync to the cloud and from the cloud and even between cloud services. In the archive module, there are a number of new features. You can now do incremental archives, and you can now tie the archive to a file system, and it just picks up the new files. There's a number of new overview of the resource section within archive, so you can now more easily see the file set. You have an overview where you can see the metadata, the single asset, all the thumbnails, and a file system structure at the same time. There's also an improved search algorithm, giving you more speed and making it a lot easier to work with. So if you want to try this out, we can cut you a 30-day license key and price up some LTO options for you. Just let us know. All right, so I'm going to throw it open. If there's any questions, please send it through. Okay, the first question was from Rob. Is there any Avid support for the small tree products? So I'm assuming you asked that question before I got into it. So yes, there is, using Mint by FlavorSys, which Sean is going to talk about very shortly. Yes, you can do project sharing. Is any of the LTO storage Mac based? A lot of the LTO hardware vendors do support both Mac, PC, and Linux. Some of them don't, and more importantly, you need to check out if the software, your chosen software, supports the desired platform as well. So, for instance, with ArchiWare, it is more centered around the Mac platform, but it does have some Windows support. And with Storage DNA, on a smaller level, on a single tape drive basis, it does support Mac. But if you want to move to a tape library or multiple tape drives, have an expandable solution, you do need to go with a PC-based Linux operating system. What cloud storage platforms does ArchiWare support? That's actually a really great question, and I know who asked that. I'm surprised you're dialed in from the UK. I will get back to you. Were there any other questions before I hand across to Sean?